Stamford Bridge, Chelsea and Manchester City. It finishes 4-4. You want this game had all the drama in the world. So much excitement, I think, for a neutral. But I'm going to chuck this question out there. And I really don't want to be... I'm going to direct it at the man in black first.
Blue,
whatever. I'm colorblind. Was this a good game technically? Because when you go back to the goals, you see so many mistakes, many of them unforced, many of them by people who don't normally make those mistakes.
Yeah, come on. I mean, football's entertainment, isn't it? It's not all about puritanism at the times. It was raining, the pitch was wet, and that sort of conditions lends itself to mistakes. I thought it was a really good game. It will already go down as a Premier League classic. Now, you might think that it shouldn't be because technically it wasn't the greatest game, but there's some great goals, there's some great performances. You know, I thought Cole Palmer was excellent technically. He was excellent. Some players weren't so good technically, Nickel Jackson, but I think it was a great game to watch. If you're a fan, I mean, at the end of the game yesterday, you don't see this very often, both sets of fans were applauding the players on the pitch. And that wasn't because they've got a great result, it's because they were really entertained. So yes, I think it was a great game, despite the fact there were lots of mistakes. We like to see mistakes. Mistakes make for entertainment.
Jules, I'm going to direct this question to you too. The reason I ask about this is because I'm always interested to see performance levels of teams. Right? This is why we pay managers and they improve. And they can't control 4 individual errors. It was exciting. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
But what struck me is we saw people who normally don't make those mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about Nico Jackson. Ultimately, the man scored and got booked. So, you know, he's on course. But Ruben Diaz, Vardiol, these aren't people who make errors like that.
Yeah, I know it was strange. I agree with Ogden in the sense that it was spectacular. I disagree with him. There was no great goals. None of those. We saw 8 goals. None of them were great. There was nothing. There was a tap in for Raheem Sterling, 2 penalties, an own goal by Thiago Silva. Really, it's not a Rodri goal. It's an own goal by Thiago Silva. Nico Jackson. There was the Erling Haaland scored with his bum.
His header was a great goal.
Thiago Silva's header was a legit great goal, I thought.
No, I mean, come on.
Oh, it was
this
a great goal.
Not a great goal. This is not a great goal. Nobody marks him. He runs at the near post.
It's still difficult. It's a difficult.
Okay, did you see Robert Lewandowski's header? This is a great header. Thiago Silva's header is not a great header.
That's it. Let's compare Thiago Silva with Robert Lewandowski.
You're saying to me Thiago Silva is a great goal. It's not a great goal.
Was it the best goal in the game? Yes. Okay.
But it shows you there were no great goals. It's great for the Premier League and for the legend of the entertainment that the Premier League is. However, when Pep Guardiola, even Pochettino to a certain extent, Pochettino doesn't expect the same thing from his team than Guardiola does. No. When Pep is going to watch that game again, he's going to be horrified again.
I think they will be horrified. I think if you're Pochettino, I think you are the happier of the two, for the reason that you kept coming back. You showed character, you showed spirit, you showed unity. We knew that turning this Chelsea financial project into an actual team, you know, is a little bit like kind of doing a U-turn in an aircraft carrier in the Manchester Ship Canal. It's going to take a lot of time. And I think you saw the response from the players. The players are into it. The crowd needed a lift. This is important to Pochettino because, you know what, people say patience, but whatever. He's in the bottom half of the table. That shows that from the man management side, nobody can fault Pochettino, I think, right?
No, they've had a really big week. You know, winning at Tottenham really raised morale. And I think that the performance on Sunday against City again, and I think what it showed for me, the player, Pochettino's the guy that gets the players playing for him. And you saw that yesterday. And I think there were a couple of occasions where it got a little bit lively. There's a bit of confrontations, a bit of pushing and shoving, a bit of, you know, bad tackles going in. But the Chelsea players were together. And when they were pushing and shoving, that there were 3 or 4 or 5 coming together to defend their teammates. And little things like that show you that there are a group of players that are actually playing for each other. They like each other.
Just like Manchester United. Jules?
The intensity was great from a Chelsea point of view. But we said it before. This is where most of the games, this is what they do right now. They don't have the patterns of play yet. So they play with a lot of intensity and it works. And it disturbed City's rhythm, who had no control of the game, which is the problem for City. When they don't have any control, then it's just too open for them and they concede. They score a lot, but they also concede a lot.
I love the subtext, obviously, of Cole Palmer having the ice in his veins to go and take that penalty in the 95th minute against the team that, as we discovered, he did not grow up supporting. Right? You guys were telling me that's why his name is Cole, named for Andy Cole.
Yeah,
there are pictures on social media of him wearing a Man United kit, and the story is that he's called Cole after Andy Cole and not Dickoff after Paul Dickoff, but Dickoff Palm wouldn't really scan, would it? I don't think.
All right. I would have gone with Lee after Franny Lee. I think that would have made more sense for me if that was the case. I want to break this down a little more and test Jules's theory that there were no good goals in this game, even though Mark and I
You
like
can
to
test whatever you want.
But before, I want to give a shout out. Obviously, Cole Palmer, tremendous story. I thought Raheem Sterling, not just this game, but I thought he was absolutely tremendous. The intensity with which he played, the intelligence with which he played. I don't want to pick on Nico Jackson again, but I will. I don't think it's that straightforward to play in a front line with Nico Jackson, with Conor Gallagher, who puts in a ton of effort, but he's kind of asked to do that double role, kind of coming forward, doing the press, and then going back. You have to be constantly aware of the movements. And Sterling, I think, is playing with an intelligence and a quality that I don't think was there last year, maybe because of the change of manager. He feels really comfortable.
But do you think it's easier for him because there's no structure in the team? So when he was at City, he had to do everything was so precise and it was so structured. In this, he has more freedom, like Cole Palmer, to be fair. More freedom. If he wants to take 20 touches and go one-on-one with Oggy, he can every single time and can even come back and nobody is going to say anything.
I think Gab's point about the intensity, that's the key for him, because yesterday, the real intensity of Sterling, and it's been the same for a few weeks now, that wasn't there last season. I mean, it's probably too strong to say he was sulking last season, but he looked like he got to Chelsea and thought, what have I done? Managerial changes, loads of players coming in. He didn't look happy, and he probably thought that I should have stayed at City and stuck around to win the treble. But I think he's taken on the responsibility.
And then left on a free transfer.
Yeah,
because let's face it, him leaving City was as much about money as it was with Gab Juls than anything else. Yeah.
But I think he's now embracing the fact that he's a senior player. Him and Thiago Silva are the main guys there because they've been around. It's a very young team. And I think it's taken a while, but I think Pochettino's been good for him. I think he's got a coach who believes in him, who's letting him be Raheem Sterling again. And I think yesterday it was fantastic the way he continued to run at people and to motivate people to get stuck in. I just thought that was the best performance I've seen from Raheem for maybe 3 or 4 years.
That ball he gave to Malo Gusto at the end when he's still 3-3 and Malo Gusto just blasted with his
Malo
left
Gusto
foot.
should have scored.
Oh, God, yeah.
But that was such a great ball, such a clever ball from
But you talk about Jackson, playing with Jackson would be tough because Jackson just runs in straight lines. He doesn't bend his runs. So if you're Raheem Sterling, you're thinking, how can I get the ball to him? Because he just doesn't make it easy. So maybe he's decided that I'm never going to try to get the ball to Nico Jackson. I'm just going to try and play my own way.
By the way, Nico Jackson, a hat-trick on Monday, goal today. 4 goals in 2 games. The season that started on Monday against Spurs and City, be on pace to score 76 goals.
What about his yellow carding activity? Another yellow card.
Stop. All right. We promised Jules we'd do this. I just want to go through the goals because to see if there really were as many mistakes on the goals, if we're really just going to be difficult. Look, we know that mistakes happen in a game because otherwise it would be like the legendary Italian Gianni Brera said, the perfect game always finishes 0-0 because nobody makes a mistake.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, but if you look at the Arsenal-City game, for example, just before going to the goal, which was a lot of people, 99% of people would prefer the game from Sunday, the 4-4, than the 1-0 for Arsenal. But that game, there was no mistake made pretty much the whole game for either Arsenal or City, and they were very maybe conservative and very cautious of all of that. But that was a completely
the mistake is the shape of Nathan Ake's head.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk about this though. But before the Malo Gusto thing, to me, is evidence that Chelsea fully deserved the draw, even without that stupid stupid mistake.
No, the draw is a fair result.
Because if you look at it in terms of chances, in terms of the way they played, in terms of performance, I'm happy to say there should have been a draw. So the first one is a penalty converted by Erling Haaland. It's that thing with him and Cucurella where they're both kind of pulling and pushing and stuff like that. They both have hold of each other's shirts.
Before the cross came. And when the ball is on his way, it's of Cucurella preventing Haaland to get to the ball, maybe.
It's very soft. I mean...
If you give this one, you'd have to give it 4 or 5 times every single game.
Haaland instigates the contact and Cucurella reacts. And I don't think it's a penalty. I just think that's just a bit of a coming together in the box and Haaland makes the most of it.
Because we had arguably England's best referee in this game.
Yeah.
And I know it's open season on referees and whatever. I think Anthony Taylor's actually been generally fairly consistent and I think he's been good. He's had bad games too. I don't think this was one of his better games. I don't think this is a massive mistake. I can see why VR didn't intervene because you wouldn't call it a massive mistake.
Yeah.
I also wonder about Cucurella again, and I say this about all shirt pulling. If I'm a striker, I know VAR is there, right? So I know that they can see me shirt pulling, right? But if I'm a striker, I'm incentivized to shirt pull because what might happen is they might disallow my goal, right? But if I'm a defender, what's going to happen is they give a penalty. Mm-hmm. And if I'm shirt pulling and I'm not the guy finishing and I'm a striker, then I'm helping my team. So I think this is just something that people should generally consider when assessing these situations. The second goal was a Thiago Silva header, which I thought was a great piece of skill. But you're going to complain about the marking because somebody...
So, the marking is non-existent. So, of course, I'm going to complain with marking. Thiago Silva doesn't even have to jump. He doesn't even jump. He directs the ball across goal. And because the pitch was wet, like Mark said, it just accelerates as well. And there's nothing that Ederson can do.
Did nobody go with him because of where he ran to? That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, he ran for the penalty spot, and it was obviously a training.
But he's running away from goal.
Yeah, but Kyle Walker is running across the goal to hit it at the near post. Kyle Walker was the one I think.
You talk about mistakes, but sometimes good movement forces mistakes. And that happened yesterday. It was a good run from Thiago Silva. It's a great finish. And,
this is what we're talking about. Unforced errors. I thought if this was a mistake, this was a forced error. So I think this is still a great goal.
What's the forced error? He just ran across the goal. He should be marked.
Ogden just told you.
Since when we don't man-mark players, especially the best header of the ball in the other team? Nowhere. It would be the same for Akanji in the...
We'll get to that because I thought that was really bad. But, all right, the next one is the Sterling goal. Guardiola's not going to want to see this again.
Yeah. No. I think he even gets nutmegged.
Yeah, and he gets his legs all tangled and everything. It was just pretty ugly.
Yeah.
The Akanji one, that's another free header.
Yeah.
This actually, again, maybe it's because I like Thiago Silva more, but I'm sorry. This is really bad. This was a clear defensive breakdown from Chelsea.
Yeah, because he doesn't even make a run. At least Thiago Silva, where you're right, is that he makes that run, so he makes you think you have to follow or at least communicate with somebody else. Akanji is just there between two Chelsea players, and
I was having this chat with Gab on WhatsApp the other day about teams can no longer defend, and they've lost the art of defending. So I was referring it back to the Man United Copenhagen game where you just know that.
I do have to go back to United,
but not teams that grind
I agree with you.
And it's completely. Like the art of defending has gone because there's so much value placed on scoring goals now. It's great, and that was an example yesterday. A couple of examples of teams not knowing how to just do the very basics. Yeah. And, stop his just to defend and mark.
This is a discussion for another time because otherwise I will digress and we'll get sidetracked on this. But I strongly disagree with you. I think it's a type of defending which is different. But we'll have. And when it's a slow week, international week's coming up.
Very good idea.
We open this conversation.
Very good idea.
The goal, the next goal was the Haaland goal where he slides in with Reece James. They made this whole to-do on television on my feed. I was switching between the Italian commentary and the English commentary. And they went on and on about how hopefully VAR won't disallow it. It hits his elbow, blah, blah, blah. That's not what VAR is there for. I don't think this was ever going to be disallowed. If it was reviewed, because to see if there was a foul or whatever. There wasn't. This is just good grunt work from Erling Haaland. However, you found a mistake before that, didn't you?
But there's only one place where Julian Alvarez can cross that ball in. Watching it, everybody knew exactly what was going to happen there. And then Disasi, more than Thiago Silva, but Disasi really at no point looks at where Haaland is behind him. And
that goal took Haaland to 49 goals in 47 Premier League games, which means he's one away from 50, and the rate he scores at, Andy Cole's got the record, it's 65 games. 65 games to take 50 goals, and Haaland's now doing it in 47. But there was I think it was Opta posted the stat of where his goals are from, and all of his goals in the Premier League have come from within the tram lines of the 6-yard box. It's just a very narrow area, so it's obvious.
Yeah,
all of them. He's never shot from outside the box.
No, he did.
Two outside the box, but within that kind of narrow. So basically, just forcing wide doesn't score goals.
Okay, now comes the error fest, as I see, or happenstance fest. The Nico Jackson goal. Mm-hmm. So it's the one where Gallagher shoots from outside the box. Like, he hits it hard, but it's got a long way to travel.
Yeah.
Keepers are taught to parry it to the side. I don't know, maybe wet ball, whatever.
No.
I actually thought he could have saved it.
It just has some treatment, hadn't it? But whether that made a difference, I doubt.
So there's a treatment, makes him parry it centrally. I don't think Ederson will be happy with this. No. But you took issue with...
Ruben Diaz. Ruben Diaz is literally tackling the air, like tackling a ghost, thinking that maybe he could block the Gallagher shot is far from Gallagher to start with. And I'm not even sure he's in the line of the ball anywhere. But the problem I have, Gab, is that by him diving, or like throwing himself onto the floor in the hope that
he
maybe
takes himself out of the Nico
exactly.
Jackson
And then
rebound.
when the ball comes up to Nico Jackson, Ruben Diaz has his bottom on the floor. Nico Jackson is on his own, can take a touch and then finishes. And I just don't understand how Ruben Diaz, and that's nowhere near as bad as the next mistake that he makes, of course. But that one, I know you're a bit of a warrior, but sometimes just think a bit more, because had he stood up and stayed with Nico Jackson, I'm not sure Nico Jackson would have scored the rebound like he did.
Rodri's goal, great personality to take the shot from there, blah, blah, blah. But it is a double deflection. And in fact, this is one of those things that in England, it's traditional to award the goal. I think the whole world does this now. Oh, but if it's going on target, even if it's deflected, we should award it, not treat it as an own goal.
Yeah.
Whatever, doesn't matter. Not Rodri's fault, but that is clear.
That's an own goal. It's diverted past.
Yeah.
the
And
other
the worst
side.
is that I think Erling Haaland got the assist. No, for sure. For real, yeah.
But it was going in one corner, it ended up in the other. So how can
Yeah.
that?
My man, Armando, comes in and wins the game for Chelsea by winning the penalty. Actually, no, he doesn't, because all he does, the poor guy, he does just stand there and he gets assaulted by Ruben Diaz. Yeah.
I mean, again,
Crazy tackle.
Ruben Diaz is one of the best defenders in the world, right? We all agree.
Yeah, in theory, yeah. Which is why we're talking about this.
Yeah, but what can go through his mind at that time of the game when you're 4-3 up and you know there's 2 or 3 minutes left maximum, and it's a good ball by Sterling to Broja. It's a good first touch from Broja, but he slides literally from the King's Road all the way in, and you see him coming from so far away, and then he pretends, he said to the ref, I touched the ball, go and check, I just find it so strange that a player of his quality makes such a stupid mistake.
Okay, so here's the thing. Obviously, the rain played part of it. Obviously, I think also the intensity of the game, because this was a really, really intense game as
Fatigue
well.
in the 95th minute.
No, but I'm talking about throughout the game for all these mistakes. And look, we don't just want to be Grinches here and talk about the mistakes, but I just find it interesting when there are players who are super dependable, super reliable, make mistakes like this. Do we just chalk it up to a bad day at the office combined with the rain and the intensity and stuff like that?
Nobody's perfect, are they? I mean, people make mistakes, and you just express the conditions there that, it was a slippery pitch, but then pitches are watered anyway, aren't they? So how much slippery was it? It was just a bad mistake.
So if you're Pep, you're not worried about it. You don't see any structural issues.
No, but what's true is that when you face a team with so much intensity at Chelsea, and when you lose control, even away from home, the Rodri mistake on the Malo Gusto goal, when you try to play the ball from here to you, Gab, so short pass to Grealish and Sterling intercepts and then gives the ball to Malo Gusto. This is like a very, un-Rodri-esque mistake. And yet maybe because they had to do all that running, because they didn't control the game like they usually do, maybe they just lost a little bit of that lucidity towards the end. Same for the Ruben Diaz crazy tackle on Broja.
So could this be a blueprint for teams facing City? What Chelsea did?
Not many teams can play like Chelsea with that intensity and that.
Because it's the intensity with the quality that Chelsea have, and the fact that obviously, given where Chelsea are and not having European football,
of course, they're
it allows you
fit.
to prepare.
For me, Chelsea and Spurs when everybody's fit are the fittest team in the league by far.
Final word on Poch, specifically Enzo. Do we get a sense of something going on there? Or is this just all in my head that I would have thought in a game like this, I would have expected Poch to expect Enzo Fernandez to take a bigger role. More of a, because this is, look, we've talked about how this is a young team and there's only the two veteran leaders, plus maybe Reece James has been there a while, but Enzo is a natural leader, right? We feel that.
Yeah.
We saw him getting in Poch's face before. It could be a big brother, little brother thing. Everything's fine.
He took him off against Spurs as well when they were 11
That's what I'm driving at. That's twice, right?
Yeah, when against Spurs, he had the quality to play those balls.
And you're seeing that. Well, I was shocked against Spurs because if there's anybody who can do this, it's him.
100%.
And then you see your number come up for Mikhailo Mudryk, who didn't play badly. I just want to give him, did a lot of running, but. What's going on? Do we think there's something there, or are we just media stirring up trouble?
Look, ultimately, Enzo is still a young kid. He's come on a massive fee. He's got a lot of living up to do, and I think he's just bedding into the game. I've seen good flashes from this season, and Pochettino probably obviously wants a little bit more from him, but I don't know. I think there's maybe a kind of a specific dynamic there because they both got this Argentinian background. I I don't think there's a problem there.
Yeah, and I don't think I agree with that. I don't think it's a problem either. But I think it shows, it could be the old coaching stereotype that Pochettino's maybe harder on Enzo because he wants more from him, and also because maybe he feels like he knows Enzo more. He can demand more of him. He knows where the line is to push him.
Yeah.
For me, when I look at this Chelsea as a collective, Enzo's one of those guys who has to perform if they're going to go to the next level. It's not negotiable. I mean, you can go and get...
It's got nothing to do with Gallagher's freedom and position, because the fact that Gallagher can basically, which is fine because he's got all that energy, we said, he's not my cup of tea, but I can understand what Poch likes in him. The problem is there's no, that structure in midfield is Caicedo and Enzo are there, and then Gallagher is a bit everywhere. Right. And could that be preventing Enzo from really giving his best? Because there would be a lot, just to finish before you go, because there's a lot of spaces where Enzo would go, but Gallagher is already there because Gallagher has that kind of freedom that he doesn't have.
I think that's a really good point. I think it's more of a tactical in the weeds point. But earlier this season, Enzo was playing higher as an attacking midfielder effectively. I don't think that's his position. I don't think that's good for him. I don't think it's good getting the ball on the half turn. He's not going to dribble around anybody, and you lose his passing from deep, right? Which is one of the things that really makes him special. So by moving him back, I was hoping you can still get his Lampard-esque runs and whatnot. To do that, Gallagher has to know when to get out of the way and clear the space for him. And I think that's what Pochettino's working towards, and I think that's the role that maybe Nkunku will fill.
Nkunku makes a difference. So when he comes into the team, that makes a difference. That the jigsaw begins to come together then, I think.
Yes. Well, we have to see how long it takes Nkunku to get match fit. But I have to say, like, somebody goes to Stamford Bridge often, the lift here is big. And this is really, really important. This is like a W for Pochettino. Yes. I'm not saying fans are turning on Pochettino, but fans are not happy with many of the players, not happy with the direction the team is going. They're not blaming Pochettino yet, but a game like this shows that
it's his first season. It's November,
and they've played Liverpool, Arsenal, City, and 12 Spurs, games. And they haven't lost.
They also played Luton and Forest and
I know, but they beat Luton. No, but they clearly struggle more against teams that will leave them the ball because, as we said, they don't have yet that structure and those patterns of play.
They've played 12 league games, and I know what you're saying about the fans. Easier for us, isn't it? It's 12 league games. You can't build a team in 12 games, especially when your big summer signing is not played. And they've signed so many players that have got a bed in. I mean, they've signed how many players in the last 2-3 windows? I mean, it's insane. So 12 games in, I think that was a massive sign of progress against City and against Tottenham. That all of a sudden they're looking a lot better than many people thought they would do by this stage of the season, considering the upheaval they've had.
So you think many people expected them to be lower than 10th?
No, they've had a chance.
They've got 16 points in 12 games.
I hope you become a billionaire so I can work for you one day, Mark, because you're going to be the nicest boss in the world.
Let's see the next 12 games.
Unless it's United, of course.
Judge on the next 12 games. I think there's signs of progress there, and I think the signs of progress, in terms of results, and the collective and the spirit.
Okay. Halfway through the season. Let's see halfway through the season.
You know what? It's funny. All right, I will let you go in a minute. You're not here for this quick hit, so don't say anything. But what you said there reminds me of what Eric Ten Hag said.
Oh, behave.
With all the setbacks we had, we're still near the top 4, right? So there's many reasons to be optimistic. And I think this is exactly like the spin that you're putting on it. So if you're going to say this about Pochettino, you got to say it about Ten Hag as well.
I've not seen a Man United performance that's similar to that one yesterday. 5 goals. I mean,
okay,
they haven't. At least Chelsea are scoring goals.
You just finished telling us how they were all down to mistakes, but whatever.
Well, this is goals.
Mark, thanks so much.